The open meeting law requires that I notify the public that this meeting is recorded. Therefore, please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made by Boston City TV, a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications, and is being broadcast on Xfinity Channel 26, RCN Channel 13, FiOS Channel 962, and live streamed on YouTube. With that, I turn the meeting to our board chair, Wes.
Thank you, Andrea. Good evening, everyone. I guess we can go ahead and start with our board meeting, and we'll look at the agenda to see what's first. First on the agenda is the call to order. And we will start off with introductions. My name is Wesley Ireland, and I am the board chair. I just wanted to let you know that I am a deaf male. I use sign language, and I will do that for the duration of the meeting. I have two female sign language interpreters this evening who will be voicing into English what I'm saying in sign language. I live in the North End of Boston, and I will call the board members one by one as I see them on my screen to introduce themselves. Next to me, I see Charlie Kim. Charlie, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Charlie Kim. I'm a member of the advisory board, a resident of the North End, and I represent parents of children with disabilities.
Thanks, Charlie. Olivia, I see you next.
My name is Olivia Richard. I am a member of the board from Brighton. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Olivia. Oh, sorry, I almost interrupted you. Thank you. Paul, I see you next. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Paul Karen. I'm a resident of the West End. I serve as a member of the board with advocacy for mental disabilities, where I have both past and present members of my family with mental disabilities. And I also work at the Boston Planning and Development Agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Carl, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi, my name is Carl Richardson. I live in Brighton Center. I'm a member of the advisory board, and I identify as a deafblind individual.
Thank you, Carl. Paulette.
Good evening. My name is Paulette Durrett. I'm a member of the board, and I represent the Mattapan neighborhood in Boston.
Thank you, Paulette. Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry Boyd. I'm from West Roxbury. I am a male, and I have cerebral palsy, and I use a power wheelchair for ambulation.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Ducia, would you introduce yourself, please?
This is Andrea Ducia, you're muted. Okay, I will tech solve with Ducia if you'd like to move to the next member, Wes.
This is Wes? Sure. Richard, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. Richard Glevsky. I am a member of the commission. I am 2/3 deaf. I don't have the sign yet, so it's a bit challenging for me, some of these meetings. I'm most interested in children's mental health also, and I live in Back Bay.
No? Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Sure,
can hear you
just
now,
go ahead.
Ducia.
Yep, yep.
Okay, I'm going to do something.
This is Wes. Ducey, I think you're muted again. I think we lost Ducia. Okay, let me see if I can find other board members who haven't been introduced. Oh, Elizabeth, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Elizabeth Dean Clower. I live in Dorchester, and I use a power wheelchair. Thank you.
Thank you. Juan Carlos, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Juan Carlos Ramirez Tapia, advisory board member living in Boston South End, and I identify with the spinal cord injury.
I think Ducia's back. Ducia, do you want to see if your mic will work and you can introduce yourself?
Sure. Okay. I think it works. Excellent. So yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Ducia Lubovskaya, or DCL for short, and I live in Boston, specifically in Mission Hill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ducia. I'm not sure if I missed any other board members. Is there anybody who on the call who hasn't yet introduced themselves? Anybody who's a board member that hasn't yet had that opportunity? Andrea's saying no. Okay, great. Then I would ask Commissioner McCosh to introduce herself as well, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Krista McCosh. I'm the Disability Commissioner and ADA Title II Coordinator for the City of Boston. And welcome to our meeting tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. So those are what we need to do for introductions. And if other members arrive in the interim during our meeting, we will pause the proceedings in order to introduce them as well. Let me look and see what's next on the agenda. We have the approval of the minutes from our prior meeting. And we had the January board meeting minutes sent to the board members. And we have a quorum this evening, so we can go ahead with a vote to approve the minutes. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the January minutes? Or can someone make a motion? Jerry, go ahead.
I move to approve the January minutes.
Okay. Jerry has made a motion to approve the meeting minutes. Who would like to second Jerry's motion?
This is Paul. I second the motion.
Great. All in favor, please raise your hand and or say aye.
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 Any nays? Any opposed? Okay. So that seems to be unanimous. The meeting minutes are approved as written. That motion is passed. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we have a presentation. Kai Kennedy is with us this evening. Kai works for the Accessibility and as an Accessibility and Inclusion Training Specialist. And the presentation is about service dogs. So Kai, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much, everyone. Yes, my name is Kai Kennedy. My pronouns are they, them. I don't have my camera on, but my icon is an image of a feminine black person with curly black hair parted down the middle and square-shaped glasses. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started on the presentation about service dogs. And, okay, is this visible to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So again, I am the Accessibility and Inclusion Training Specialist for the City of Boston's Commission for Persons with Disabilities. So this is my job. I talk about accessibility and all things involving the world of disability. In this presentation, we're going to review service animals, the rights of the handler and the animal, how to acquire a service dog, and a few other things such as emotional support animals. So the big question is, what is a service animal? The Americans with Disabilities Act defines service animals as any dog that is individually trained to perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability. So this can include physical, sensory, psychiatric, cognitive, or other body system related disabilities. Other species of animals, whether wild or domestic, trained or not, are not considered service animals, with the exception of miniature horses. Don't see too many of those these days, but there's definitely still a few. But mostly you will see dogs as service animals. Service dogs are permitted to go anywhere that their handler is. So this includes restaurants, office buildings, banks, doctor's offices, any place that you can think of, with the exception of places where there is a safety concern, like sterile units of a hospital or construction sites. They also aren't permitted or protected, I should say, in private residence. So if somebody, if you're visiting somebody and they say that they don't want a dog in their home, then they do have the right to say that. Private residents are not protected under this act. So a little bit about service dog etiquette. You never want to distract a service dog by calling to it, trying to pet it, take pictures of it, or anything of that nature. Even though service dogs are highly trained, this can cause them to be distracted and cause them to miss a cue that could possibly be life-threatening to miss. So for example, if you walk up to a service dog and try to pet it, and there is some sort of a cue that they're trained to pick up on that alerts to a seizure, they may miss that for their handler because they're being distracted by being pet, in which case they would not be able to do their job to either help guide their handler to a safe place or do whatever it is that they're trained to do to mitigate the seizure. If you see a service dog laying next to, under, or on top of their handler, don't disturb them. They're doing their job. They're trained to respond in this way. And if a service dog runs up to you but you don't see their handler, follow them if you can. They're likely trained to find help if their handler is in danger and they aren't able to perform a task to help them. So there's tons of different types of service dogs. They can be any breed, large or small. And some service dogs have just one purpose, so they might just do guide work or just do mobility work. But lots of service dogs are multi-purpose and help a handler who has several disabilities mitigate all of them or many of them. So some common tasks that most people are familiar with, or some might be, are allergy or gluten detection, seizure alert or response, vision-related guide work, mobility work, and retrieval work. Some lesser known tasks include psychiatric episode alert response or interruptions, non-visual guided tasks. So this would be, for example, if somebody gets overstimulated by loud, crowded, and bright environments and they aren't able to navigate through it, but they don't have low vision or they're not blind, their dog can still guide them and it's still considered a guide task. It's just not a vision-related guide task. And environment work. So this is kind of similar to non-vision related guide tasks. Environment work would be something like, for example, my service dog is trained to walk a circle around me if I'm in a crowded area, because folks who are too close to me kind of gets me overstimulated. So he creates a barrier around me so that someone doesn't get too close and doesn't trigger any sort of episode or anything like that. So that would be an example of environment work. Many people want to know how you can tell if a service dog is a service animal. So there's two questions that public and private entities can ask a handler to confirm the validity of that service dog. There's only two, and those two questions are, is this a service dog required because of a disability? So the answer to that should be yes. And what work or task is this dog trained to perform? So valid responses can include but aren't limited to medical or psychiatric alert or response, guide tasks, alert to auditory stimuli, and item retrieval. You cannot ask somebody if they can show you this task, if the dog can perform the task. You can just ask those two questions. So if you have a service dog and somebody tries to ask, can you show me what the task looks like, they are not within their rights to do that, and you can politely deny them. Keeping in mind, emotional support and personal protection are not trained tasks. They are not protected under the ADA for this. And fun fact that a lot of folks don't know, there's no papers, registries, certifications, licenses, or special vests that service dogs have to wear. And in fact, a lot of service dogs don't wear anything at all, and that's perfectly fine too. They're not required to wear anything. If you see any sort of license, registry, an ad for anything like that, do not fall for it. It's not real. The ADA does not have any sort of official registry or anything like that for service dogs. Okay, so sometimes there's situations where a service dog handler might answer the questions correctly, but the dog is acting questionable. You're not really sure if it's a service dog or not. So some ways to tell for sure: a service dog must be groomed without any negative odor, so they can't be covered in mud, dirt, have knotted or matted hair, and they also must be trained to relieve themselves outdoors. Now, this does not mean that service dogs can't be dyed different colors or have creative cuts. Those are perfectly fine. And in fact, a lot of people prefer to have their service dogs dyed bright colors because it can help deter people from trying to take them from them. Robbing, exactly, like stealing their dogs from them. And they must always be under the handler's control, so they can't be pulling on the leash, barking, growling at people or other animals, jumping on people, sitting, at benches or on top of tables at restaurants, anything like that. If anything like that is happening, you can either A, ask a manager to ask that team to leave, or if you are a manager, you can ask them to leave the establishment. Just in case that does happen, you always want to make sure there's an alternative for service. So for example, if you're at a restaurant and you're asking them to leave, offer them takeout so that they can still be served. There are a few kind of exceptions to this. Some service dogs are trained to bark at or jump on their handler to alert or interrupt something for them. These are trained tasks and are not considered a valid reason to ask them to leave. And some service dogs are trained to leave their handler to go find help, which we talked a little bit about at the beginning of the presentation. And they may also be trained to pull their handler through an environment. So it might look like they're pulling up the leash, but really they're guiding their handler through the environment. So again, these are trained tasks and not a valid reason to ask them to leave an establishment. There's several ways to acquire a service dog. Probably the most popular way, but most expensive, is a program dog. The Assistance Dog International website has a large list of many different programs, not all of them in the US, but several and even some international ones, where you can go on and look and see what type of service dog you're looking for and see if the program matches your budget, your needs, etc. You can also handler and trainer train this dog, or handler train your dog. This is a much more affordable alternative to the program, and so you may choose to both work with a local trainer and train some on your own. You can also choose to train entirely on your own. This is completely valid and protected. This is probably the most time intensive option. It can take up to 3 years sometimes, depending on the breed and how experienced of a trainer you are. If you're not super experienced with dog behavior, it could take even longer than that. And you can adopt a dog, or you can buy one that is bred. Shelters are less expensive if you adopt that way, but they have a higher wash rate, which is basically no longer being able to perform tasks as a service dog. Whereas properly and ethically bred dogs will cost more, but they have better success rates because they're bred specifically for that work. and emotional support animals. So different from service dogs. They just provide emotional support. That's what they do. They're exactly what they sound like. So if you have a disability and you benefit from just the presence of an animal, that can be considered an emotional support animal. It can be any legally common kept animal, so dogs, cats, birds, hamsters, fish. Some states will allow even an animal like hedgehogs as pets. Those are also protected as well, as long as it is legal for that state. And they do not have to be trained to be considered an emotional support animal. But unlike service dogs, they're only permitted in pet-friendly places. So even if they are the most well-trained dog or animal, cat, whatever you choose, they're only permitted in pet-friendly places. But just like service dogs, there's no papers, registries, or anything like that. The one exception is that you may be asked by a board for an apartment complex that you live in or building or a landlord for a letter from a physician in order to keep an emotional support animal in a place that doesn't allow pets. And that is the presentation. So you can learn more about service animals by visiting the ADA website, and it's listed here as ada.gov/topics/service animals. And of course, you can always contact our commission at Boston City Hall, and our phone number is 617-635-2726. Disability@boston.gov is our email. And those are the best ways to contact us if you have any other questions about disability or accessibility. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you, Kai. So we're open the board now for any questions, comments. I see Carl already raised his hand, so we'll go ahead with Carl.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you for the presentation. It was very good. I've been a service animal user for about 25 years now, so I'm very familiar with the rules. One's a comment, and then the second's a question. The first thing is a comment. I don't think most public places know the difference between an ESA and a service animal. So sometimes restaurant stores are afraid to say to the ESA, you can't bring your dog in. That's just something to know. The second thing is the question. I haven't been turned down in the city of Boston anywhere for a very long time, but I have been recently turned down in places outside of Boston. And the few times I've tried to call the police to come and issue a fine or a citation, which they can do under Massachusetts general law, up to $300 fine if a place or a business or establishment refuses a dog. The local police do have the ability to write a ticket for up to $300, but I find that the police do not know that. Is that something that the city of Boston police are aware of, that they have the ability to fine a business if they turn down a service animal user?
This is Kai. Thanks, Carl. That's a great question that I don't have the exact answer to. I, as the Accessibility and Inclusion Training Specialist, have been working on a number of different trainings for both employees of the City of Boston as well as constituents and beyond. And so one of my goals in this role is to work closely with Boston Police Department to train them on every and anything disability related, including service dogs. So to my knowledge, before starting this position, which I have only been on board for about a little over 6 months, I don't know for sure how familiar Boston Police Department is with that protocol. But the hope is that if they aren't too familiar with it, within the next year or so, they hopefully will be. Andrea or Commissioner, do you have anything else to add?
Thanks, Kai. I don't see that Commish has unmuted, so I'll just say yes to everything you just said. We'll be hopefully working more closely with the police on a number of training resources in the near future. And Carl, I know you've brought this law to our attention, so it's definitely on the list to dig into with BPD. In the meantime, we always encourage folks to file an MCAD report, Mass Commission Against Discrimination report of denial, knowing that takes longer, but that is an option there. And we'll follow up with you when we know more about how the training goes with BPD.
Thank you. And welcome, Kai.
This is Kai. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl Richardson. We have your hand up, so.
Richard, we see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. Kai, I'm curious what the city's doing to let the public know about the resources that you just, outlined for us.
Thanks, this is Kai. So this exact training, as well as ones very similar, have been given to folks who work for the city. I also want to get this training specifically up onto our YouTube channel. That way we can just kind of share it far and wide. And I will be leaving very briefly over the summer for leave for a couple of months. But when I return, I have intentions to do some in-person trainings and hopefully even some demos with my service dog. So I always find that people learn different ways, and if you're able to kind of watch and see what he does, I think that's a great thing. And he also loves to perform because he's a poodle and that's what they do.
Does the board have any other questions or comments for Kai? Elizabeth? You have your hand raised?
Yes, one issue that's come up is people who are using guide dogs, people who are blind or low vision, being refused by Lyft and Uber drivers, and sometimes without even their knowledge, that their ride just doesn't go up. Their driver has decided to cancel. And that's not allowed. It's grounds for firing the driver, but nonetheless, it still happens. And the Riders Transportation Access Group, RTAG, is working to try to find, with Uber and Lyft, to try to find solutions, better solutions.
This is Kai. Thanks, Elizabeth. I actually was just previously on, I think it was maybe a month or so ago, a meeting with RTAG and Uber and Lyft representatives talking about this exact issue. I definitely, voiced some concerns because I've had the same issue with my service dog as well. He's not a visual guide dog, but he does do guide tasks, and he's a multi-purpose service dog, so he provides a lot of support for me. And I have also been denied Uber and Lyft, so I definitely understand the frustration, and I'm hoping that we can continue to work with RTAG and Uber and Lyft and kind of get some more widely spread education that is consistent and actually useful for folks as opposed to what they have now. So it's definitely something that I'm aware of for sure, and it's been on my radar for a bit too. But thank you for bringing it here so that folks know and feel that this issue has been heard.
So any other questions from the board? Actually, I have a question. I'm a little bit surprised when you mentioned that there was no proof, like papers or anything. You just asked about the service dog or emotional support animal. So I understand that there are some people that want proof, like from a doctor or physician, that type of thing, that the dog is serving a purpose, either emotional support or a person with a disability, and other proof or documentation that they need from maybe a doctor or another person that would provide that type of verification.
What other types of proof would be accepted or required if not the doctor's note?
This is Kai. Were both questions for me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know for sure what the reason is behind not having any specific sort of certificate or license or documentation. My best guess would be that there are a lot of low-income folks who can't afford to get their dog from a program, as a lot of them are expensive. And if they choose a free program, there can be a lengthy wait list. The dogs are not always custom trained. They might come kind of cookie cutter, so they're trained to do 1 or 2 or maybe 3 tasks for a specific thing like mobility or seizure alert or allergy detection, but it becomes a little bit more difficult when you have multiple disabilities. So for example, I am autistic and I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and I also have POTS, so I have several different disabilities that all affect me in different ways, and I had not come across a single program that offered a service dog that could fit all of those needs for me. So my options were to owner train or to owner train and trainer train, which is what my dog is. He's kind of half trained by a trainer and half trained by me. And so that's my best guess as to why there isn't a certification or anything like that. Folks are welcome to, if they feel like they want to carry around documentation from their doctors. Some do. Some service dog handlers do that. It's just not necessary. And I also find that a lot of times if one person does it, they expect it from everybody. If you go into one place, establishment, and you've come across somebody who, has paperwork or says, my doctor prescribed this service dog for me, then they will continue to expect that doctors are going to give paperwork for that. And the reality is that a lot of doctors will not even agree with somebody needing a service dog. So it's unfortunate, but I think my best guess is that it's a way to protect folks who are even more vulnerable because of, income, or maybe they are Black, Brown, or Indigenous. They are part of the LGBTQIA community. They're just even more marginalized than being disabled. And that can in turn make it very difficult to, 1, be taken seriously, and 2, have access to some things that, other disabled folks have access to. So that's my best guess. I hope that answers the question.
This is Carl. I can add a little bit to why originally paperwork was not requested. It was because originally in 1990, when the ADA came out, before they thought about other marginalized communities, it had to do with the fact that the disability community did not want to disclose medical information and whether or not they have a disability.
This is Kai. Thanks, Carl. I actually didn't know that, so that was great additional context.
And I'm not saying your reasons are not also valid as an addition to. I'm just saying what it was originally in 1990.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, and I think I'll start to implement that into my training, so thank you.
Any other questions from the board for Kai?
The only thing I will say is the only case where you have to prove you have a service dog, because the airline industry does not fall under the ADA. It falls under the Air Carrier Transportation Act. And unfortunately, as of a few years ago, we do now have to prove that we have a service dog and fill out a form with the Department of Transportation ahead of time before we fly, get permission and get that form approved before we're allowed to fly with our service dog.
This is Kai. Thanks, Carl. That is true. And I've flown several times with my service dog, and yeah, we've every single time have to fill out a DOT form, Department of Transportation form, in order to be let onto the plane that way. So thank you for adding that.
I see one board member has a hand raised. Paulette?
Well, I worked for a private college for 25 years as a disability services coordinator, and the only documentation we required was a letter from a doctor saying that a person needed either the emotional support animal or the service animal. And so we didn't investigate it any further as long as it was not a relative. Sometimes they'd have their uncle who's a relative to write them a letter, but as long as the person didn't appear to be related to them, we just accepted that as documentation to provide them an accommodation so that the animal could be on campus.
This is Andrea Paulette. Yeah, emotional support animals are covered under the Fair Housing Act, not the ADA. And yep, that's why you can absolutely ask for a letter, because their Housing Act allows that, particularly for emotional support animals in housing. So thank you.
This is Kai. Thanks, Andrea. That's exactly what I was going to say. I also wanted to add just a little bit of additional context that in place of employment, if you're asking for a service dog as a reasonable accommodation, they can technically ask for just proof that you would need this accommodation. So they don't have to send your entire medical documentation, your whole report or anything like that. And of course, it is up to the employer. Some employers don't choose to do that, some do, but they are within their right because that is technically a separate, title. Employment is separate, and so that is something they are within their right to ask for, just something from the doctor that says this person would benefit from this in the workplace or something of that nature. So that is another caveat to that. But thank you, Paulette, for having that in there about colleges and things like that. Yep, because they are, typically dorms and things like that. You're living there, so that is fair housing, and you do need. They have different protocols.
Okay, this is Wes. Any other questions or comments from the board for Kai before we move on to the next item on our agenda? Kai, we'd like to thank you very much for your time and your really interesting presentation. We definitely learned a lot this evening, and
This is Kai. Thanks, Wes, and I appreciate all of you for being so interactive and asking great questions and helping me to learn something too.
great. All right. So I'm looking at the agenda, and it is time in our agenda for our board elections. So let me explain the process that we will be utilizing tonight. Okay. I will read through the process as it was described. So we'll need to have someone to nominate, and the nominee needs to accept the nomination. And we've already done that for 3 of the positions that we'll be having elections for tonight, other than the treasurer. And then as the current board chair or the vice chair, we need to ask those assembled for additional nominations from the floor. We need to ask that 3 times. And then someone who is not the person running the election needs to make a motion to vote on that nomination, or whoever the person is for whatever role we're considering. And then we take on the vote. So as I mentioned, we have myself running for chair. Paul is the only person running for vice chair so far. Juan Carlos is running for secretary, and he's the only nomination so far. And then we were going to ask Carl if he wanted, if he would accept a nomination for another position. So I'm going to ask the current vice chair to take over for the chair nominations so that I can participate as someone who's running for that position. Ducey, that's you.
Sorry, I think that's on me. Ducey might not have the ability to unmute without me. 1 second.
All right, now I'm unmuted. Okay, yeah, I am ready to do my task.
Before we go for election, this is Carl. Can I ask for one clarification on the election?
Sure, this is Wes, go ahead.
I was under the understanding that Juan Carlos running for treasurer and the secretary position was vacant, or was I misunderstanding?
You were not Carl. This is Andrea. I put a typo in the email to Wes. My apologies, Wes.
This is Wes. So, Juan Carlos, you've been nominated for treasurer. Is that accurate?
That is correct, Wes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. So, Carl, we need to ask Carl if he will accept the nomination for secretary then. Thank you for that clarification. So, Ducia, you can go ahead and we'll go back to the chair nominations.
So what should I do?
Ask if there are any other nominations from the floor for chair.
Okay, is there any other nominations for the role that was mentioned? Is there any other nominations for the role that was mentioned? Are there any other nominations for the role that was mentioned?
So now someone needs to make a motion.
Would anybody like to make a motion for Wes, to vote for Wes?
This is Paul. I make a motion to vote for Wes.
This is Carl. I second that motion and vote and suggest that we close the nomination for the role of chair by unanimous consent and acclamation vote for Wes.
With no objections to a unanimous consent vote, I think Ducia, unless you see an objection that I don't see, it would pass.
This is Wes. Okay. Well, thank you all very much for your vote of confidence. I will remain as chair for the upcoming term as well. So now I will take back running the election. I'll do that for the remaining 3 positions. So again, when I ask the floor 3 times for additional nominations, after that, a person who is not me can make those nominations, or excuse me, can make that motion. And that motion to proceed with the vote needs to have doesn't need to have a second. I believe it doesn't need to have a second. That's what I read in the email description from Andrea, that motion doesn't need to have a second. Okay. So Paul has already accepted the nomination for the position of vice chair for the upcoming term. And I am supposed to now ask from the floor 3 times, are there any additional nominations for the position of vice chair? And for the second time, are there any additional nominations for the position of vice chair? And for the third time, are there any additional nominations for the position of vice chair?
This is Carl. I move that by acclamation of unanimous consent that we close the nomination for vice chair and vote Paul to be the vice chair.
This is Wes. Any opposed? Okay, well then, congratulations, Paul. You have just been voted in as the vice chair for the next term. Congratulations.
Just want to say thank you for your trust and confidence to the board, Commissioner McCosh, and to Mayor Wu. It's an honor and privilege to serve. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, so now we will speak about the nominations for, I just want to make sure I'm following the right order. Hang on one sec. For secretary then. And I need to ask Carl first, whether Carl is willing to accept the nomination for the position of secretary for the upcoming term. Carl?
This is Carl, I do.
This is Wes. Great. Okay. Carl has accepted the nomination for the position of secretary for the upcoming term. And so now, again, I need to ask the floor 3 times if there are any additional nominations. Are there any additional nominations for the position of secretary for the upcoming term? Are there any additional nomination for the position of secretary for the upcoming term? And finally, are there any additional nominations for the position of secretary for the upcoming term? Okay, seeing none.
Someone needs to make a motion.
And it can't be me.
That's right.
This is Paul. I make a motion to nominate Carl.
Okay, this is Wes.
All in favor?
Paul did not mention the unanimous consent.
Oh, I'm sorry. For the unanimous consent, this is Paul for Carl Richardson as the board secretary.
Okay. This is Wes. Okay, great. So now, Paul, as a clarification, has asked this unanimous consent piece. So, seeing none opposed, congratulations, Carl. You are the new / still secretary. Actually, I don't remember if you were the treasurer before. But anyway, new term. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now for the role of treasurer for the upcoming term. We have Juan Carlos, who has already accepted this nomination. And now I need to ask those 3 times to the floor if there are any additional nominations for the role of treasurer for the upcoming term. Derry, I see you've had your hand up, but now it's lowered. Did you have something to say or add?
No, I will get to it at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Okay. And for the second time, are there any additional nominations for the role of treasurer for the upcoming term? And for the final time, are there any additional nominations for the role of treasurer for the upcoming term?
This is Carl. I move that we close the nomination by acclamation of unanimous consent and vote for Juan Carlos to be treasurer of the commission.
This is Wes. Any opposed? Jerry, your hand is up again. Did you want to contribute?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Carl beat me to it. I was gonna happily move to to close the nominations, but maybe next year. Maybe next year.
Feel free to do it.
No, it's okay. You already did it, Carl. You already did it, so.
Sorry.
All right, okay, this is Wes. All right, congratulations to Juan Carlos. You are elected to a new term as treasurer, and it's going to be a very exciting role because I don't think we have any money to deal with, so that's great.
This is Juan. Thank you so much, everyone. I look forward to working with everyone.
And I don't think the secretary has to take minutes, so that's why I agreed.
Okay, this is Wes. So the elections are complete. Congratulations to the new officers. All right, let's see where we are. Now it's time for the chair's report. Actually, I'm just going to do one thing. Make my font a little bit bigger so that I can read this more easily. Okay, so I have 4 items that I wanted to update you about during this report. The first is I wanted to talk about artificial intelligence, or AI as we know it. It's hard to believe that artificial intelligence is continuing to trend and enter into our personal lives. As I know, there are several companies that are working on AI efforts on speech and sign language and the like. Now there's an app called Nagish, Nagish, which the interpreter might be mispronouncing, which empowers accessible communication through AI and has been certified by the FCC to provide relay services, was approved last month. For those of you who don't know, Nagish is a Hebrew word which means accessibility. And the app would benefit many deaf and hard of hearing users. And the AI would eliminate the need for other humans, including ASL interpreters, stenographers, or captioning assistants to communicate during relay calls. Nagish provides speech-to-text and text-to-speech solutions via real-time captioning engine that makes calls more accessible for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. And think about how much this would benefit those users. They get their own privacy without other humans involved in their calls. I guess the only challenge with this new approach is to ensure that folks accepting AI calls and making sure that they're not robocalls, so they're not hung up on. Next, I wanted to talk about baseball, just for a minute. It is disability news in baseball. I have to admit that I love watching baseball games. I'm a huge sports fan in general. And I thought that I would mention a movie that I saw on Netflix that was probably not really well made, but was based on a true story. The name of the movie was The Hill, and it followed the story of Ricky Hill, R-I-C-K-E-Y, who had a disability. He had a degenerative spine disease and ended up playing for the Montreal Expos back in the 1970s. Also, in more recent news, there is an all-star player from East Carolina University. His name is Parker Bird, and he has a prosthetic leg. He lost his leg from a boating accident 2 years ago when he graduated from high school. He is currently viewed as a possible MLB draft prospect. Next, I wanted to give you an update about what are called pop-up winter sauna villages in Boston. There are 2 pop-up saunas that I know of that are in Boston. The first one is the Moki Sauna on the Greenway, which includes scented oil, sauna, steam room, followed by an icy submersion in the plunge pool. And then there's the Winter City Sauna right next to the City Hall. Unfortunately, these two spots are not accessible by ramp, and they would require folks to get the assistance of attendees, or excuse me, they require attendees to take steps up and down. They are new incentives to the City of Boston, so I expect they need to do a better job with accessibility in the upcoming cold winters in future years. We will ask Patricia to maybe provide some more information or updates about this in her architectural access report, and we can ask any questions about this to be on hold until Patricia's report, please. One more thing, and then I will wrap up, about the Coolidge Corner Theater. I know that the Coolidge Corner Theater is not in Boston, it's in Brookline, but they just announced that they will be providing open caption screenings on Tuesday evenings for showtimes between 6:30 p.m. and 7:45 p.m., as well as on Thursday afternoons for showtimes between 12:45 p.m. and 1:45 p.m. The theater decided to add open caption screenings as it aligns with the theater's ongoing effort to increase accessibility for their audiences, including better accommodating community members who are deaf and hard of hearing. And that is all for me. That concludes my report. Are there any questions or comments for me for that report? Okay, seeing none, thanks very much. I will ask Commissioner McCosh for her report.
Great, thank you, Wes. Before I give my report, we do have another guest speaker from the City of Boston. I would like to introduce them first. This is Nancy Smith, who is a program manager at the Office of Emergency Management in City Hall. Nancy, I'd like to turn it over to you first.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner McCosh. And first of all, I would like to thank everyone here, especially Colleen, for bringing this to the community. This program that is being launched actually was launched several years ago. It's the CERT program, and some people may be familiar with CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. It's been a program that's been national since 1985, and under Mayor Menino, this program did exist. And then a few years went by, and it kind of closed its doors. And so when Mayor Walsh came back and wanted to have this program, he put in effect with Chief Benford, who is my chief, that he wanted to have CERT brought back to Boston. And this has been literally a 2-year planning program to get CERT back up. And you say, why does it take so long to put a program in effect? Well, because of the fact that the CERT team itself sits within inside of a region, there are some other CERT teams that you guys may be familiar with in this local area, which is Brookline. They've had their CERT team for 19 years. But the ones that I like to really brag about happens to be in New York. New York has had their CERT team for 20 years, and this past September, which was National Preparedness Month, they actually lit up the Empire State Building in the CERT colors to thank the CERT teams for assisting with being volunteers in their city. And last year, New York did 320 deployments. So what does that mean here for Boston? Well, this past summer, I had a wonderful opportunity to really get to know Colleen with the Mask of Art gathering, who came to Boston to really help us look at festivals as being, I'm just going to say it, soft targets. Every place now is a soft target. They have been doing this for 10 years or plus, I think maybe 15 years. And what does that actually mean? It says when people go to different festivals and everything, there's all these things that may not be in play that we forget about. And like, how do you prepare to have a place be safe? Well, Colleen was on the team, And as we got a chance to investigate different areas of the festival, we also was able to have a 40 by 40 tent, the first time it's ever been done in Boston, that allowed festival goers to drop by and learn CPR anytime, stop the bleed, and Narcan. Never ever has this ever been done before. So one of the things that is sitting at the table is that a lot of people go and they want to take the classes for active shooter. You know, and we're like, that's great because we want to make sure that we are building up a fortress for people to feel safe. But on the other side of the active shooter is maybe you might be the survivor. And so what does that look like? So the CERT brings a lot of volunteering program inside of this. And now I'm going to talk to you about, you know, how did we get to have this discussion with the Disability Commission. All right, I just want to let you guys know I have a very good sense of humor, and I've actually used to work at the Boston Public Health Commission, and so that's where I learned about your department, and I've had some wonderful relationships with many people who have worked in this department, and I'd like to see this continue. So Colleen and I were talking, and she said, what about CERT? What kind of volunteering can I do? And I said, there's so much volunteering you can do. First of all, you have your own chair. We're going to pull you right up, and we're going to get you to work. And what that meant was that the FEMA model is the whole community. Everyone is involved. Everyone is included. There's no one that's left out. And so we decided, as we were chit-chatting about this, let's do this. Let's make sure that one of the CERT classes that is being offered will have intentionally access and functional needs. And so what did that mean for me? That meant that we needed to create an advisory group. And there's some amazing programs out in the national arena. There's one group that's down in New Jersey that has 45 members. Thank you so much, Adrian. It has 45 members who are actually deaf. So we are offering this program to anyone who would like to take this class, the CERT program. The registration is actually, it's already up, but it's really going to be pushed out next week by the city. And so one of the classes that we are making sure that we're going to have to learn all the pros and cons and the roses and everything is a class that's going to be held on Tuesdays from 10 to 12:30. And I actually want to shout this out is that Colleen is actually a part of the group that's actually learning to become a trainer like me. So she will become a CERT trainer to be able to train folks in this program. And so that's what I wanted to share with you guys. And I hope that there's some people here who will look to come into this class, because it's virtual and it's also hybrid. So it's a combination of both for everything. And we have wonderful, we have interpreters, we have everything that we're trying to put in place. But thank you so much.
Hi, Nancy. It's Krista McCosh. Can you just tell us what CERT stands for?
Oh, sorry. Community Emergency Response Teams.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we just wanted to give Nancy an opportunity to talk about this incredible program just for a few minutes because, like she said, there are a lot of elements for people with disabilities, so we'd love for anybody who's interested to get involved. Thanks, Nancy. Okay, we can pull up my report now. All right, so first of all, I want to start out by congratulating our 2024 Board Executive Committee. Really excited that Wes will be staying on as the board chair. And then we've switched around a few and welcomed some new board members into different roles. So congratulations to everybody. We're looking forward to a great year. So just some department updates on my end I'd like to share with you. I've been talking recently about the Disability Data Standardization Initiative that we're working on. And this is working to create a policy for how, when, and why city departments collect data on disability. We are hosting a series of focus groups during the first week of March. So if you're interested, we'd like you to sign up. And I'm wondering if somebody could put the link in the chat for those who are interested. And the focus groups are basically going to focus on language. Like what type of disability language do you feel is respectful, is appropriate? What type of language would you use to identify as disabled? And things like that. And then we're going to take that language, we're going to take the assessments from the focus groups on language and use them to look at data that's collected and asked from different city departments like human resources when people are looking for jobs, and things like elections commission when people are going to vote. So it'd be great if we get some people interested. We do offer a $75 gift card for those who are selected. Not everybody who expresses interest will be able to be chosen because we do have a limited number of slots. But if you're interested, you can certainly send. Okay, just a reminder of some annual events. Save these dates. The Disability Community Forum is Wednesday, May 1st at Suffolk University Law School. ADA Day is Wednesday, July 17th from 12 to 2 on Boston City Hall Plaza. And Civic Engagement Day will be in early October on the 5th floor of Boston City Hall. Speaking of dates, we know we have some important election dates coming up. So the 2024 Massachusetts presidential primary will take place on Tuesday, March 5th. Voter registration deadline is Saturday, February 24th. Early voting for the primary on the 5th takes place from Saturday, February 24th through Friday, March 1st. And that's at different locations throughout the city. We also have ballot drop boxes around the city that people can drop ballots in, and all polling locations and all types of voting are all accessible to people with disabilities, including electronic voting. For more, you can visit the Elections Commission website on boston.gov. Next slide. So some nice updates on youth engagement in the city. The city is hosting its annual Youth Jobs and Resource Fair on Saturday, March 23rd at the Reggie Lewis Center. And this is a free event that gives youth the opportunity to find a summer job by connecting youth with employers and resources. So it's a great event that we look forward to every year. The Mayor's Youth Summit is taking place this year for the first time in a long time. It will be taking place on Saturday, February 24th from 1 to 6 p.m. at the Artists for Humanity Epicenter. This provides a place for young people to network, connect to resources, engage in interactive activities, hear from special guest speakers, and end with a big celebration of Boston's youth. Earlier today, we had some youth from BCIL and Easter Sales come in and do a tour of Boston City Hall. I'm sorry, it might have been yesterday. I'm losing track of my days. Anyway, they came in to look at the improvements in the City Council Chamber, City Hall Plaza. They got to learn about the Office of Neighborhood Services, who their neighborhood liaisons are, the fact that they even have neighborhood liaisons, and learn about who their city councils were, learn about their polling places. So it was a great event for youth to really help get involved in civic engagement throughout the city. So we love doing those types of events in our department. And then you may have heard, it's been in the news, but Mayor Wu was able to initiate a program of free museum Sundays for BPS students. So it started in February. On the first and second Sundays of each month, every BPS student and up to 3 guests will get free admission to several iconic museums in Boston. The Children's Museum, Franklin Park Zoo, the Institute of Contemporary Art, the Museum of Fine Arts, Museum of Science, and the New England Aquarium. And by all accounts, it's been a smashing success. Over 2,500 youth have made use of it so far, and it's still February, so we're looking forward to spreading the word on that. If you know anyone who'd be interested who is a BPS student or family, please let them know about that. Next slide. Just some other updates. We all know it's tax season, so the City of Boston is once again doing its free tax prep services. The Boston Tax Help Coalition provides free tax prep and filing for low and moderate income residents. So any taxpayer who earned less than $70,000 in 2023 can get their taxes prepared and filed for free. So residents can safely file while also learning about tax refunds and tax credits, including the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit. And now, even if you don't file taxes because you make below a certain income, you're still eligible for tax credits, which is basically free money. So don't miss out. Sign up today for a free tax prep site. There are over 30 sites in Boston, and we're also hosting our ASL Tax Days and VIP program this year, which is visual impairment program this year. So we encourage everybody to make use of this if you fit into those parameters. And then just an update on the American Community Survey data collection. You may have heard that the US Census Bureau had proposed changing the definition of disabled in the American Community Survey, which would have had the potential to significantly reduce the number of people who would be counted as disabled. But after a lot of negative feedback from the disability community, they put this proposal on the shelf for another year. So good work by advocates, and I know a lot of our colleagues in other cities had voiced their disappointment in this change. So it goes to show you that advocacy really can work. So great news on that front. And then just a quick transportation update. We know we promised quarterly updates from BPS Transportation. So a few notes that we got a few weeks ago from the transportation team. Driver hiring, which is TransDev, they currently have 723 active drivers. They also have 22 trainees actively working toward full certification through this school bus CDL program. Monitor hiring. BPS currently has 690 active monitors with 75 candidates in the process of being onboarded. An additional 35 candidates are in the process of being submitted for hire this month. They have continued to make significant progress and continue to work to meet the needs of all students with bus monitors in their IEP and 504 plans. And they're continuing to focus intently on recruitment, hiring, and training. And then just some data on on-time performance and coverage. So reported for the school year of 23-24, without trips missing GPS data in the denominator, the below data reflects the on-time performance in addition to the percentage of trips missing GPS data. Sorry, that's a lot of mumbo jumbo, but basically in December, the on-time percentage was 91.8. Actually, I'm not quite sure how to interpret this.
Yeah, sorry, I can step in, Commissioner.
Go ahead.
I wanted to copy and paste it exactly as we got it from them. But yeah, so in the morning, 91.8% were considered on time, 98.4% arrived within 15 minutes of on time, 99.5% within 30 minutes. Only 0.1% of routes were entirely uncovered, and 2.1% were missing the GPS, so we don't have data on when they arrived. So then there's PM data below that as well. For evening trips, unfortunately much lower, 87% on time, 97.3% within 15 minutes, 99.3% within 30 minutes, but the same approximate amount uncovered, 0.1%, but slightly more missing GPS, 2.5%.
Great, thanks, Andrea. And we'll continue to give these updates every quarter. And that is my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
I think the interpreter is muted, but Charlie.
Hi, this is Charlie. Thanks, Commissioner, for the report. And then also, I'm just going to repeat myself again on some of the transportation data that I think it's important, especially as they're reporting to the Disabilities Commission, that we get disaggregated data, specifically covering the students with disabilities. I think the one bullet point that you showed kind of was an aggregated number of monitors that they're seeking out, and then they added a sentence that said, and we're actively seeking to cover the students that are required to monitor in the IEP. I think that data, the disaggregated data, would be very important. Just to point out for those who may not know, the on-time percentages, I believe the contract that they have with the state, there was some guarantee of that they're supposed to be 99 or 98% on-time performance, but now I think they're kind of showing times that 15, 30 minutes and all that. But I think it is important, again, to see the disaggregated data for the students with disabilities, that, are they actually, being brought to school on time or even being offered that bus ride. So I just have to continue to advocate and ask again. Thank you for them reporting in, and thank you for bringing that in, Commissioner. But I think the disaggregated data is more relevant and more important from our perspective.
know, and we're happy to share, any information we get. Again, I think the Transportation Department knows that we're interested in asking these questions. The data does come from different sources, from what I understand, like the schools track things, and then there's the Central Transportation Dispatch Office. We have asked for disaggregated data in the past, but we can continue to ask for that and see if we can get more clarity on the specifics you're asking for.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions for Commissioner McCutch, Mrs. West? Okay, thank you for your report. Next, we have the Architectural Access Report from Patricia Mendez.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Patricia Mendez. I'm the Director of Architectural Access. I have a short architectural access update. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about a new resource that we're working on. Our office often gets asked about public meeting venues that are accessible. So we started a document. It's a shared spreadsheet, and our ask for you members of the board is to take note in your own neighborhood, and if you notice or you know of an accessible venue that can be used for public meetings, to please go in our shared document and add the address, and hopefully we can have a complete resource that we can share every time somebody asks us for an accessible venue for a public meeting. So I hope you all keep your eyes open, eyes and ears open, and we can start working on that shared document together. We'll share the link after the meeting. I appreciate your help with that. The second is the sauna, specifically the Moki sauna. Wes asked me to share an update on that. And the summary that I can offer is that when the Moki sauna came to us for technical advice for its accessibility, we're very, very happy to review their plans. This is the first time that a temporary event like that, like a winter event, a sauna, came to Boston, so it's very exciting. So we reviewed the plans, and Moki Sauna owner was very interested in hear our feedback and our suggestions. So we reviewed, we added some accessible entrances. We talked about having a little bit more room, ensuring that there's turning spaces and all that. The complicated part came with that cold plunge. This is a sauna, so you get hot and then there's this cold plunge. So we didn't have like a good solution that said this is what you should do. So the route that we took is we encouraged the owner to apply for an architectural access board variance. In our discussions, there was an option for a lift, but it wasn't a real good option because this lift that he had explored lowers the person, but lowers the person very slowly. So this is supposed to be like a cold plunge, so something slowly going down in the wintertime. It didn't seem like a great solution. So as I said, we encourage them to look for an architectural access board variance. So the variance is like a special permission to have some element that is not meeting the accessibility rules. So that's what the variance is. So the case went to the Architectural Access Board, and their variance was denied. And the reason for the denial was that it really didn't meet the impracticability threshold. So what's impracticability? It means that the owner didn't explore all of the options possibly. So long story short, the part about the tub, the cold plunge, got denied.
Can I add a little context, Wes, as well?
Please, feel free.
Thank you. So I know you mentioned that there are 2 saunas in Boston this year. The Moki is on the Greenway, and then we have one on City Hall Plaza. So we worked closely, my team worked closely with both of those. And it's not that they're not accessible. It's that, like Patricia said, they're both very complicated structures because the cold plunge that Patricia is talking about is a very small pool. It's a tiny pool that you would not be able to really get like a ramp up to. Like she said, if you're in a lift and you're someone who can't just step into the pool, you're getting lowered very slowly in like Arctic temperatures while you're wet. It's meant to just jump in and jump out. But they were very cooperative in working with us and taking our feedback. Like Patricia said, all the buildings are accessible. They put ramps in those. They made larger turning radius. They made an accessible shower. So they did take all of our suggestions. It's just that there weren't really any suggestions we could give them for the cold plunge. And so we suggested that they go to the Architectural Access Board with a variance. And I actually supported their variance because I didn't believe there was a real solution to it. Because it's such a unique installation that it really isn't great for someone who can't just jump in and jump out to make it accessible. So there was that. And then the one on City Hall Plaza, we also worked with them, and they do have a ramp going into their facilities as well. So I just wanted to clarify that. Although they did have a variance, like Patricia said, the variance process is actually a good thing because it will give people permission to put something up that's not accessible as long as all the accessibility options have been explored. Now, they did get denied that variance, so they need to go back to the board with more information. But me and my team, we were still supportive of the variance, like I said, just because we didn't think it was really practical to make it accessible.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's the end of my update, and I'm happy to hear questions.
This is Wes. I see Paul's hand is raised, and then I see Jerry. So we will have Paul first, and then Jerry, please.
Yes, while we're on the subject of accessibility, this has to do with the 9th floor men's room over by the employee bathroom. It's been brought to my attention there isn't an accessibility stall. There's about 6 stalls, and I was thinking maybe if we could talk to property management about making maybe the last stall an accessible bathroom stall for people. People noticed on a few different occasions, they sent me pictures of people with disabilities having problems entering the smallest stalls. I know there is the room if we took one out in the end. Just figured out. On the 9th floor, I know I did come by the office and they told me what floors there are men's room accessible bathrooms. And someone in the BPDA mentioned to me, why isn't there one on the 9th floor? So I just figured I would bring it to everyone's attention.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, if you could forward me those pictures, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, or how we could go about maybe the stall and work with property about expanding one.
Paul, I just want to let you know too, we are working with public facilities on full assessment of all the bathrooms in City Hall. And I know you had reached
Okay.
out to me individually, and I didn't get back to you. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. While I have the floor, can I just say one thing that Samantha Menino is running the Boston Marathon through the Shriners and UMass for children with disability. If anyone's interested in supporting her, please don't hesitate to email Lisa Menino, who works on the 8th floor, or you can even email me and I can forward it to Lisa. I know she's reached her financial goals. Every little bit helps, but even just maybe you could get her information to just show her support and her good cause. That's former Mayor Menino's granddaughter, Samantha. Thank you.
Mrs. West, thank you, Paul. Let's go back to the architectural access report from Patricia and keep within those topics. Jerry, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, just a point to ask for more clarification. So, are we saying, Commissioner and Patricia, that both the City Hall Plaza or the sauna adjacent to City Hall and the one on the Greenway applied for variances and got denied?
No, the one on City Hall Plaza doesn't have a plunge. It's just a sauna.
Okay, so that was, that didn't need a variance.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that is accessible. We'll see if they're come in future years.
This is Wes. Olivia, I saw your hand up as well. Did you still have a question or a comment to make?
Yeah, this is Olivia. It was in regards to a brand new building that opened up at 5 Washington Street in Brighton. In their infinite wisdom, they put the power doors in the parking lot, not at the corner entrance. So if you can't open the door, you can't get into the CVS.
Hi, Olivia. Alright, you said 5 Washington Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the Brookliner.
Is it a CVS or?
Yeah, it's a CVS. It's a commercial structure that's in a multi-use property.
Okay, I'll check it out. With the automatic door openers, sometimes they're required, sometimes they're not required. So it is possible that they're technically not required in the front, but I don't know for sure. So can I look into it and get back to you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. 5 Washington Street in Brighton?
Yep.
Got it.
This is Wes. Yeah, just to be clear, it's 5 Washington Street in Brighton, not in Boston.
Brighton is in Boston, so it's all good.
Yes, okay. All right, any other questions or comments related to Patricia's report? All right, seeing none, thank you, Patricia, for that report.
You're welcome.
And now it is the time for announcements. We have already heard the announcements from Paul. Do we have other announcements that anyone would like to bring, excuse me, to share with the board and the public?
This is Carl. I have a quick announcement.
Sure, go ahead, Carl.
So Governor Maura Healey, a few months ago, signed an executive order to hire a chief accessibility officer for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And yesterday, a press release went out asking for members of the public to join the governance board, and you either have to have experience as living as a person with a disability or have experience in the world of accessibility to do with, computers, the internet, that sort of thing, and they're looking for members to apply. I can put the link in the chat if people are interested. You got about 2 weeks to fill an application out, but I would ask anybody who is interested in joining the governance board to apply, because I think it would be good to have input from the community. Thank you.
This is Wes. This is Wes. Thank you, Carl, for that. Any other announcements, please? Okay, seeing none. Next on our agenda is the discussion of old business, and we have state legislation updates. So, Carl, can you give us an update on the state legislation, the medical aid and dying bill, as well as the other bills we've discussed, please?
Okay. So first we'll start with the medical aid and dying bill. That was reported favorably out of the Public Health Committee and sent to the Senate. As of now, the Senate clerk has not taken any action on that item, so it does not have a calendar date to be heard, and I do not know whether or not it will be heard or not. But I have a meeting with the Senate clerk tomorrow, and I will let you know once I hear anything on that. But it has been reported out of committee and gone to the Senate and been sent to the Senate to be heard. And that's Senate Bill 1331. Excuse me. As you know, there were two captioning bills, one in the House and one in the Senate. They were bundled, and that was reported favorably out of the Children, Families, and Persons with Disability Committee. S63, I believe, was the bill number in the Senate. And this is the confusing part, and I'm asking for more clarification. It was reported favorably to the Senate, and then the clerk sent it to the Senate Ways and Means Committee. I am confused why it was sent to the Senate Ways and Means Committee, because usually it's only sent to the Ways and Means Committee if it has a financial component to it. I don't see why there is a financial component to it when we're simply asking places of a public accommodation to turn on the decoder in their TV set, which doesn't cost any money. So I have asked for clarification on that, and when I get that, I will share that with the committee as well. But that's currently with Senate Ways and Means, the captioning bill. And that's my update.
Okay, this is Wes. Does anyone have any questions or comments about those two updates from Carl? Okay, thank you very much, Carl. All right, moving on, we have new business. Is there any new business? Does anyone have anything they would like to bring up for new business? Okay, so moving on, now is the time for public input, public comment. Any member of the public who would like to comment or ask a question? Anything you'd like to share with the board? Anyone who would like to say something, please raise your hand and you will be called upon and unmuted.
Thanks, Wes. Just since I'll be the one sending you a request to unmute, you can raise your hand in the Zoom function, on camera, or in the chat. Once Wes recognizes you, I'll send you a request to unmute for your 2-minute comment.
Okay, this is Wes. Carl, would you like to say anything at this juncture?
I think I would like to give this one to Jerry.
Ah, okay. Jerry, is there anything you'd love to say?
Yes, apparently there's no one from the public that wants to join our meeting tonight, so I believe everybody is looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting. So I so move to adjourn the meeting.
I second. This is Carl, I second.
All in favor? Hands or aye?
Aye.
I assume there will be no opposition to the adjournment? All right, so we are closing this meeting at 7:09 p.m. We will see everyone in March. Thank you to everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good